We have 5 others here with us today to help tell their families' immigrant stories. They are Kim Delevette, Michael Lopez, Peter and Norma Samra, and Glenn Osaka. And I will give a brief introduction of each of you and then have you just come up in that order. Kim Delevette is a Southwest Airlines Community Affairs and Grassroots Manager responsible for Northern California and the Pacific Northwest, as well as nationally for support of the Asian American and Pacific Islander community. Kim has her own amazing immigrant journey, having fled Saigon as a young girl as it fell in 1975, and I'm sure she'll tell you about that. Michael Lopez is president of Solid Ground US, a technology and media management consulting company. He is also the current president of Hispanic Net, a Latino business and professional organization. His father and grandmother fled the Mexican Revolution, but found themselves detained on Angel Island. Peter and Norma Samra were raised on their family farm in the Sacramento Delta. Today, they pay tribute to their father, Delevette Samra, who in 1910 journeyed from India to the United States, stopping here. Glenn Osaka is Senior Vice President of Juniper Networks. He is a third-generation Japanese American here today to tell the story of his grandmother. Thank you, and Kim, you'll start us off.
Good morning. It is absolutely wonderful to see all of you here today, and sitting up here looking out, it's just very humbling to see all of you here. So thank you for taking the time to join this special day with us, this momentous day. I come here wearing 2 hats today, and I am a Community Affairs Manager for Southwest Airlines. Deeply honored to be a sponsor of this event today, and also to be speaking on behalf of an immigrant voice. First, I'd like to share just a brief story about the Love airline, which was founded on the premise of freedom. Back in the 70s, people donned coats and ties to fly. Air travel was a high-class activity, and believe it or not, airlines did not discount. Herb Kelleher, one of our founders and now Chairman Emeritus, believed everyone should be able to fly, and not just 15% of the privileged population. When other major carriers didn't think there was room for another carrier, the employees of Southwest Airlines rallied behind the Southwest cause, all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. Finally, 4 years after our incorporation on June 18, 1971, Southwest took flight to Spring, Texas City. Ever since then, we've given people the freedom to fly with our low fares, safe, fun, and friendly service. And today, 85% of American adults have flown on a commercial airline. As a result, that's often referred to as the Southwest effect. Today, Southwest flies to 72 cities and 37 states and is recognized as one of the world's most admired companies. I share a brief part of our history because the warrior mentality, the very fight to survive when others wanted us to fail, is what created our esprit de corps. Our unique company culture and our people have been our recipe for success for over the past 4 decades. And our employees are still committed and proud to be a part of the freedom business. Don't forget our bags fly free. In our commonalities, we strive to champion causes, in our communities. Let's try this. Thank you. In our communities, Southwest strives to champion causes that matter most in the lives of our customers. And we love hearing your stories, such as how you met the love of your life when you were sitting in the middle seat, or how we make it easy for you to grow your business in another city and be home in time to read a bedtime story, or how we enable you to fly to give a final hug goodbye to a loved one. Stories transcend time and not only illuminate our past, but also have the power to heal and to inspire. When we share our stories, we share our commonalities, the heartache and the challenges that we overcome, and the hopes for our future. I also wanted to take a few minutes to share my personal immigrant story. In 1975, when I was only 2.5 years old, I fled Saigon with my 10-year-old brother and 3 teenage cousins. I never saw my mother again. She was supposed to be on the same flight with us, but because she wanted to say goodbye to my uncle in a small town hours from Saigon, she got caught up in the mass exodus of refugees and missed the plane with her only children on board. Thank goodness I don't have memories of the refugee camps or the war like my older brother and cousins do. And thankfully I was too young to remember seeing people shot outside of our house in Saigon. I don't recall the sounds of heavy artillery and the shrill of my mother's fearful voice as she tried to safeguard her family. Unfortunately, my brother has those memories, and it is because of his fragmented stories that I'm able to piece together my formative years. Fortunately, he and I were adopted by an American family, and I grew up in a predominantly Caucasian community and was oftentimes the only Asian in my elementary school, church, neighborhood, and community. When I was young, I was teased for my slanted eyes and for looking different from my blonde hair, blue-eyed peers. I was ashamed of my identity and heritage. After graduating from college, I flew back to my motherland, and after almost 20 years, miraculously found my uncle and extended family that I never knew I had. That first trip forever changed the course of my life and began the process of finding myself. Learning about my roots, and finally being comfortable in my own skin. For the first time, I was not ashamed of being Asian American, and I began to take pride in my identity and my rich heritage. We each have a story today, and I encourage everyone here today to participate in preserving your family's story, our collective story, our collective history. So my son, James Vaughn, who is here somewhere today, your children and your grandchildren, our grandchildren, will know the sacrifices that were made to ensure their precious freedoms. I truly believe that to know who you are, you have to know where you came from. Your immigrant voice story, like mine, can be archived on the Foundation's website for posterity. Our stories help instill confidence in our youth and pride in their heritage, history, and being. It's also our responsibility to preserve and share our stories so we can learn from our mistakes, teach what is right and what is wrong, better understand each other, and work towards a more tolerant country. I'm blessed to work for a company that allows me to be myself and cares about the needs and passions of our many diverse communities. So on behalf of our 35,000 employees who love you in the air and on the ground, we're proud to be part of this celebration today, and we thank the Angel Island Immigration Station Foundation for your tireless efforts to preserve this sacred place, and to all of you who have supported the foundation to allow these timeless walls to speak to us today and to generations yet to come. Thank you.
Can everyone hear me? My name is Michael Lopez, and I come here today as a result of war and revolution. It starts with my grandfather, Francisco Lopez, who was a government official and was the paymaster for Carranza's army during the Mexican Revolution. He arranged to meet my grandmother and father at a safe house in the area around Guadalajara. It was quite dangerous, and families had to be protected. In this meeting, my grandmother and father witnessed the assassination of my grandfather. Excuse me. I will try to keep it together. In that process, my grandmother soon realized very quickly that she had to get out of Mexico because their lives were not safe. She got my father as much money as she could get and was not able to get my uncle, and he had to be left behind. And they went to a port in Colima. Took the first boat that they could out of Mexico that was not going back to Mexico. That was coming here to San Francisco. As they arrived, my grandmother, pregnant with twins, I should say, and my father, who had whooping cough and some other disease, were brought into Angel Island, and I presume my father was quarantined at the hospital, and my grandmother was put in the administration building, which I understand is where the women were kept. And in the process, they were more or less denied access, and they were not deported right away because they were waiting for my father to recover. My grandmother always said, "Lord, please put the right people in my path. That's all I ask." Somehow she got a telegram out after asking a guard who was the best lawyer. The guard's response was Woodrow Wilson. And somehow she got a telegram off to the White House. And this is during the time when our president was recovering from a stroke, and his wife was actually running the country. We have had a woman president before. Somehow she saw the telegram and responded. My grandmother and father were allowed into the country. They were taken in by Catholic Charities. As far as we know, the twins were lost. My grandmother, a woman of means, had to become domestic help, and my father was put in a foster home. They eventually were reunited. My grandmother remarried, moved to Marin County, pre-Golden Gate Bridge, so that was something, and started a life. My grandmother had 3 more children. My father, being a Mexican immigrant, went through some problems, but was accepted in the community and took the name of Ange. His middle name was Angelo, Michael Miguel Angelo Lopez. And they became members of the community. The story of this is we all became part of the American story. My father is a World War II veteran, decorated, commanded a tank under General Patton in the North Africa theater, and also fought in Italy. He took part in the very brutal battle of Monte Cassino, and was in the first tank column that liberated Rome. He received military honors at his funeral. And the rest of us in my generation of my family, we carried on our tradition that my grandmother gave us of being the best we could and doing all that we possibly can to make ourselves better. We received the best educations that we could possibly get. We have touched the world, representing our country, representing our businesses, and representing our communities. And we have this tradition that we pass on to our children as well. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I feel honored to be here today sharing with all of you the legacy of a man, Delevette Samra, my father. This event and the plaque commemorate his journey and his struggles in life in America to ensure a better life for his children and future generations. It also commemorates the great man he was, especially the role he played in my life as a father. As a young child, I never realized the entirety of the impact that his journey had on us, and the values that I would learn from my father, who was greatly shaped and strengthened by hardship. My father left behind a great legacy that was only enriched by his strong values of hard work, education, trust, conservation, commitment, and patriotism. In 1910, at the age of 14, my dad told my grandfather that he was going to America. My grandfather told my dad he would regret it, but my dad had a dream. He had a vision for a better life. My dad was adventurous, a risk taker, and he possessed integrity of individual well beyond his years. All of these qualities enabled him to leave his small village in Punjab, India. One of the greatest gifts my dad had taught me was his love for this country. One of his proudest moments was when he received his U.S. citizenship in 1961. Through all the hardships, the struggles, the back-breaking work, and the prejudice, he was still proud to be an American. America had allowed him to achieve his dream for a better life. That was why he loved it. Last November 2010 marked my dad's 100th anniversary of being in this country. My family wanted to celebrate our 100th anniversary in this country and pay tribute to him. On behalf of my brothers, Paul, Harry, my sister Norma, myself, and our families, I would like to thank the members of the Angel Island Immigration Station Foundation, whose tireless efforts have made this event possible and have allowed us this opportunity to honor our dad and others like him with a plaque as a symbol of his journey to America and the man that he was. Thank you for the celebration.
Good morning. So I'm a third-generation Japanese American. Many of you probably share my stories and heritage, and I'm here to honor my grandparents. Their names are Sujiro Osaka, Masa Takayama Osaka, Mitsusaburo Ohashi, and Mihi Endo Ohashi. And I was unfortunate because I only was able to know Mihi Endo Ohashi, my grandmother. My other grandparents had died by the time I was born. And as maybe is often the case in a Japanese-American family, there are many things that are not spoken of. And so I only know little bits and pieces of my grandmother's story, but the family story is that she came through Angel Island. The plaque that we decided to put on the wall basically says that their dreams have become our reality. And the life that I live every day, and I know that my cousins and sisters and my kids live very much are about that story. So when I come here, this is my second visit to Angel Island, the thing that's striking to me is that Mihi Endo was 19 years old when she left Shizuoka as a picture bride. So she came to marry my grandfather, who was 10 years older than she was, and near as I can tell, she didn't know him. And you know, my own daughters are 20 and 18. My youngest daughter going to college soon in New Jersey, and I think, oh, you know, how's she going to handle this great journey to New Jersey? And of course, my grandmother was 19 years old, and she got on a boat in Yokohama and came to the U.S. So she arrived in 1912. Look, you're just going to have to stand here. Buck and I are old friends. Here, I have my notes here. So she arrived in 1912 as a picture bride. Buck's always been doing this for me. And her courage just really amazes me. And I know that that the stories of all of your ancestors are also about their courage. I'm sorry. Go here. Yeah, okay. Here. Oh, okay. How are we doing here? Perfect. Gotta speak up. So I think the only thing that I can comment as well about her life in the U.S. was that she always had a saying, and those of you who are also of Japanese heritage know this. My mother's saying was the same, was "shikata ga nai," which basically means it can't be helped. So you know, for my grandmother and for my mother and my father as well. Well, my grandmother first, she expected till the day that she died when she was 96 years old that she was going back to Japan. And I always felt saddened about that because I think that she wasn't quite sure why she had come. And for my parents, their story was also about endurance and perseverance because also as many of you have the same story, they were interned during World War II. But what my grandmother taught me and what my parents taught me was the value of courage and perseverance, and I only hope that I've been able to pass that on to my daughters as well. And it also helps me, though, in reflecting on some of the experience. So I am in high technology and executive in Silicon Valley, and as a result, I have the privilege of working with many, many immigrants from India, China, Taiwan, Russia, the UK, Australia, India. And I have the pleasure of sometimes being a guide and a mentor to them through their careers. And what I can see in them is the same desire, the courage and perseverance that I know my grandparents and my parents brought to their stories and brought to me. So I have this privilege in front of all of you to do something that I never had the chance to do while she was alive, and that was to say thank you, Bachan. Thank you for coming, and thank you for setting us up here in a wonderful place where we've been able to build our lives and to fulfill your dreams.
Norma, please come join us.
Good morning. I'm Norma Samra. I'm privileged to share in this celebration today and share some thoughts regarding my father on behalf of my... Okay. I'll take it off. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Sound like Verizon commercial, huh? Okay. Okay. I am privileged to share in this celebration and share some thoughts regarding my father on behalf of myself, my brothers, Paul, Harry, Peter, and their families. A wise man once said, this Punjabi phrase means the dew falls off the leaves of the larger plant onto the plants closest to it. This is analogous to a family network. The closer knits a family, the more support it receives from the other members. The plant is supported by the dew that comes from the leaves, just as family members are supported from each other. This wise man supported his family in numerous ways, including sending money to India continuously, building a home for his brothers in India, and sponsoring numerous family members to this country. This wise man, every evening before dinner, reflected on the members of his family that had passed on. He never forgot about his family members in India, nor did he ever forget any of his family members in America. This wise man was an individual who we proudly call our father, Delevette Samra. Family and commitment is what this celebration means to us as we reflect our father's journey through life. We can only hope that we are able to instill these values in future generations and that we are able to teach them that everything begins and ends with family. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim, Michael, Peter, Norma, and Glenn for sharing your family's stories. These are just a few of our many collective stories out here that I know are in the audience. And they are why we have worked so hard to preserve this place, for it really is about our families and our stories. We hope that you will go out there and contribute your story to the Immigrant Voices collection on our website.